The Four Forces That Act on an Airplane While in Flight by Joshua Hammack. All right, so we're going to be learning about the forces that act on an airplane while it is in flight. There are four of them. A force can be thought of as a push or pull in a certain direction. Um, while one of the four forces is pulling or pushing the aircraft, the opposite opposing force is pushing or pulling it in the opposite direction as well. Force is also a vector quantity, meaning that it has both a magnitude and a direction associated with it. All right, so the first of the four forces that act on an airplane of flight will be weight. Weight is a force that is directed toward the center of the Earth. We all know it as gravity. Anything that hovers above the Earth is going to be drawn toward the center of uh, the Earth by the gravitational pull. The magnitude of the weight depends on the mass of the aircraft, parts, fuel, baggage, and people, of course. The weight is distributed throughout the plane, but it is centralized on the center of gravity. The airplane rotates about the center of gravity while in flight. The weight of an aircraft in flight is opposed by another force called lift, which we'll get to in the next slide. So the opposing force of weight will be lift. To get around the weight force, the airplane generates a force called lift. It's generated as the airplane moves through the air perpendicular to the direction of flight. Most of the airplane's lift is created by the shape of the wings, the camber of the wings. As the airplane moves through the air moves faster over the top of the wing and slower underneath. This is called Bernoulli's principle. This causes the faster air to create a low air pressure above the wing and the slower air to create a higher pressure under the wing, thus creating the lift needed to sustain flight. So let's now talk about thrust. To overcome drag, the aircraft uses a propulsion system to generate thrust. The propeller or jet engine creates the needed thrust to move the plane through the air. It's important to remember that the engine's job is to overcome drag and not lift the airplane. Um, Lift comes from the camber of the wings and Bernoulli's principle. The fourth force that acts on an airplane while in flight will be drag. It is opposite of thrust. Just as Newton's law states, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. As the airplane moves in the air, it is introduced a force called drag. Drag occurs opposite the flight path. Um, Opposite the flight path, that thrust would push it through the air, and drag is affected by many factors such as the shape and the velocity of the airplane. So we now know what the four forces of flight are that act upon the airplane while in flight. You have lift, you have weight, you have thrust, you have drag. So these four forces are in equilibrium only when in straight and level unaccelerated flight. Straight and level means not climbing nor descending, and, and of course not while accelerating. When in unaccelerated and straight and level flight, the four forces of flight cancel each other out and are in equilibrium. This again can be explained by using Newton's third law of motion. For every action or force, there is an equal but opposite reaction of force. This does not mean the forces are equal. It means the opposing forces are equal to and cancel each other out. So thrust equals drag and weight equals lift.